Welcome to the complete beginner guide for Civilization 7. My name is Drongo, I'm currently level 31 with more than 200 hours in Civilization 7, and in this video, we're going to take you through some early game tips and tricks to help you with your gameplay in Civ 7. We'll dive into an early game and we will look to just go through absolutely everything and attempt to be as thorough as we possibly can. And of course, that starts on the leader screen. You're going to have an opportunity to pick your leader. You might find one that calls to you. For me, that was Isabella. I absolutely... well, initially it was Confucius, but then Isabella, oh my lord, I tell you what, she is so much fun to play. But you might be a little bit different. Today, we're going to be going with Catherine. Now, every leader is different in Civilization 7, not just the look of them, but also the way that they play. They've got different bonuses for different things. As an example, Augustus, he gets a lot of bonuses for towns, and that changes the way that he plays, because he basically just wants to have one or two really big cities and a whole bunch of towns that are supporting them. Whereas a leader like Ashoka has a lot more of an incentive to build taller, have larger cities, less of those towns, and really just focus on building up a big, happy empire. Today with Catherine, our plan is quite simple. We're just going to go and play a straightforward game, not look to take too much advantage of the way that she plays, but we will, wherever possible, look to try and blend in her bonuses. Now, one thing you'll note is, as we move over onto the starting age screen, we've got three options: Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. A normal game will go sequentially, starting in Antiquity, then to the Exploration and Modern, but you can choose which age you would like to start in. Now, there's a couple reasons why you might want to do that. Maybe you really like Modern Age, or you really like the Exploration Age, or maybe you're like me, and you want to try and unlock your levels for your leaders. Because when you unlock a level for a leader, what that does is it gives you a whole bunch of stuff that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So as an example, if we take a look here at, let's look at Benjamin Franklin. He's got a whole bunch of stuff that is available to him depending on what level he is. So as you level up, as you get more experience with him, you will unlock more things. And these things will affect your in-game bonuses. So as an example, he gets access to a Memento, which we'll talk about in a second, that gives him 10% science and happiness when you're in an alliance. And it gives it to both you and your ally. So this is quite powerful. Isabella, as an example, she gets bonuses for natural wonders. So +2 gold on natural wonders. And check out this one. This is what I'm working towards at the moment. 100% yields on natural wonders if you're working the most natural wonder tiles. That is, well, that's pretty exciting. So let's talk a little bit about how you go about getting those experience points. So there's two components to it: your foundation, which is what I talked about earlier, where I'm level 31, and then there's your leader component. So foundation is just more general thing, you know, like play 100 turns, play 300 turns, we played all the turns. Whereas your leader is a little bit more specific. So we'll take a look at someone brand new that I haven't played. So let's have a look at Harriet Tubman. So depending on what, well, let's frame it a different way. There's lots of different challenges that you can do. But the most common thing that is going to be going through here and completing each of your legacy paths, which we'll talk more about. But essentially what that allows you to do, if we go back to our exploration ages, you can come in here and then get experience for those legacy paths. So it's something down the track that we'll talk more about. But let's double back to Momentos and talk about those, because every game that you play with Civ, your initial game that you play, you'll probably only have one slot unlocked, but these are bonuses that you'll carry with you throughout the game, and these can seriously influence the way that your game plays. Each one provides a slightly different bonus, and you can choose and base that around the type of leader that you're playing or the type of strategy that you want to play. So as an example, one of the strategies I want to work towards is I want to play Napoleon, the revolutionary, who gets +1 movement to all land units. And what I want to do is I want to combine that with this one right here, Bicorn Hat, which gives +1 movement for infantry units. So it's like you're getting +1 from Bicorn Hat, and then you're also getting +1 from his leader bonus. So basically all of your infantry just become cavalry. So it's one of those cool little ways that gives you that replayability in the game. So I'm not going to choose any Mementos today just because I'm not too fussed about it. We're going to start off in the Antiquity Age, and unlike previous civilizations, you've got access to a whole bunch of different civilizations. Your leader is completely independent from that. So you'll be given a couple of suggestions. Now, I would just say that when it comes to these suggestions, typically just try and go with what the game suggests you, but it's not always the best option. So once you understand the game a bit better and start looking into it, you'll be able to make your own decisions about that. But Greece is always just a really solid choice. In this game here, us picking Greece is going to make a lot of sense, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we'll go ahead, we'll just pick Greece now so that we can move on. And actually, before we do that, We'll just talk about some of the unique bonuses that Greece gets. So every civ, just like every leader, gets unique bonuses, and you can mix and match these. And these aren't all the unique bonuses. There's a whole bunch that you don't even get to see right now, which we'll talk about further. But essentially, there is a lot of difference between your civ. So maybe if you like one specific leader, so for me as an example, I really like Isabella. I've got lots of replayability depending on which civilization I play with her. So that's another great option. So now we move on to the settings page here. It's going to be pretty simple. We've got difficulty at the top here, so you're going to start it off. I know I started off on Governor. I said I want to find my feet first, and then I'll move it up to Viceroy, and then eventually I moved it up to Deity. When it comes to your game speed, this is just going to change how long it takes for you to do things in the game. How long is it going to take you to build a scout? How long is it going to take you to build a library, to research something? It's not going to actually change how much your units can move. Your scout is still going to be able to move the same amount of movement, whether you're playing on online speed or whether you're playing on marathon speed. So for today's playthrough, we're going to be playing on online just so that we can get through the game a little bit faster. For your map type, at the moment, I will just say right now, Continents Plus is probably the best. Probably best to avoid the other ones. I'm not sure if you've seen the Reddit post. There was a Reddit post recently. It's not the prettiest until these get fixed up. And then finally, your map size. This is actually going to determine how many players are in the game with you. So tiny, small, standard. The standard is actually small. Standard is quite large. So let's talk about advanced options, because there's actually some really important things in here that I recommend you do. First thing that you're going to want to do in every single game that you play, in my opinion, is change the age length from standard, change it to long. And there's a really important reason why we do this. And when we get into the game, I'll tell you exactly why that is. But essentially, the way that Civ 7 currently plays is you've got these 3 different ages. And when you get to the end of Antiquity, you move over into Exploration. And often I will find that the game is moving into Exploration age before I'm at the end of Antiquity. And I want to get to experience that. And I don't get to experience that. Maybe that's because of the difficulty that I'm playing on or because of the speed that I'm playing on. But it's a really important thing to do because it just allows you a little bit more flexibility as a player. And the great thing is, once you actually get to the end of the age, you can very quickly finish the game and move on to the next era. So it's a really nice change. Another thing to note, you've got the option for crises to turn them off or turn them on. We'll keep them on today, not that we'll get to it. Disaster intensity, I don't switch this one, but that is typically your setup. And then finally, map seeds. So this is essentially, sometimes you'll see a really cool spawn. You can ask somebody, what's the map random seed? And they'll send you a number, and you just plop that in here, and that will take you straight in. Finally, before we move on any further, one of the things to note is that in Civ 7, they don't have reroll. So here's a little tip for you. Let's say you really like your setup. You really like Catherine. You really like the Momentos she's got. You really like Greece. Everything about this you like. You want deity online, whatever it is that you want. What you're going to do, head down here, hit save config. You can see I've already got a whole bunch of them that are pre-selected, and I'm just going to call it config number 6. And then what I can do essentially is you can just come in and load it up anytime that you like, and it will just automatically do it for you. But one thing just to remember, it will also save the map seed, so you want to copy paste the new map seed. Anyway, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. It's time. We made it 8 minutes. It took us to get into the game, and we start off with our founder. Our founder is a unique unit. This is not a settler. This is a founder. They found a city. That's really important to remember because there's cities and towns now in Civ 7, which we'll talk more about a bit later. But early on, we're going to be looking here, and we're going to be assessing where do we want to settle. So typically, when you're here in the early game, you're going to be looking for 2 key things. Number 1 is fresh water. Number 2 are resources. So if I'm sitting right here, I see a river running towards my north, but I don't see any other fresh water. Let's take a look at our settler lens. So I'm going to head down to here. I'm going to click the settler button. And indeed, we can see that we've got no fresh water here, which is kind of important. We really want fresh water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit that, and I'm just going to move over towards this fresh water. And I'm just going to hope that we've got some resources over here. I'm going to hope that this is a good spawn. It might not be a good spawn, but it's kind of important. Now, another thing that you want to do as well in your games. Ooh, okay, so one of the things that you want to do in your games is make sure that you turn on your hex grid, make sure you turn on your resources so that you can see where your resources are, and also turn on yields. Your mini-map should be on, but if it's not, make sure you turn it on. That's kind of important. The continents don't really play a huge component of Civ 7, at least not that I've seen yet, so I don't ever really use this lens. Now, when it comes to your movement in Civ 7, if you've ever played Civ 5, it's the exact same as that, in that you can use all of your points to go into this forest. So what I should say is you only need 1 point of movement to go into this forest. So what we can do is we can actually take a look. So if we have a look up here, we can get a little bit more of vision, and we can still go into this spot, but unfortunately it didn't really give us anything. So we're just going to come over here and, hey, that's actually not a bad little spot. We've got a horse tiles here, so we'll go ahead, we'll take that. Now, normally I would say avoid moving too much. That's probably a bad idea, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to settle our city. So we've started off, we've settled our city, and one of the things that we've done, one of the things that we failed to do is observe our leader bonus. So our leader, Catherine, has a special bonus. And we have failed to observe that, and that's okay, because that's all part of the plan. So if we take a look at Catherine, you can see that her cities are settled. Her cities that are settled in tundra gain science equal to 25% of their culture per turn. And down here, we were in tundra. So if we hover over it, you'll see that it says flat tundra, flat rough tundra. So this was all tundra down here, and we moved out of that tundra, so we don't get that bonus anymore. But I'm happy to take that for the moment, because we've got the fresh water. And the reason why fresh water is important is because if you don't have fresh water, you're going to start losing out on your happiness. So happiness is a real key. Yield, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but let's first talk about how growth works in Civ 7, because it's quite different to the previous games. In Civ 7, you don't have access to builders. Instead, what you've got access to is just citizens that grow. And when you grow in Civ 7, you're offered up a whole bunch of tiles. So we'll click the grow button, and we're offered any of these 5 tiles. And when we do that, it's going to culture bomb the tile. But further to that, what it's going to do is it's going to start working that tile. So the yields that you see right now on these tiles are not actually given to us. The only yields that we've got are from our initial starting tile. So we've got the Founders Edition Palace in here. It's very nice and looks incredibly out of place here in the Age of Antiquity, but we'll allow it. We'll allow it. Anyway, let's continue moving on. So we're going to grow, and initially you might look at these horses and think, damn, those are some good-looking horses. And you're not wrong. They are not bad-looking horses, but I really want this cowland. This is juicy, because this is a resource that's going to give us +2 food in the capital. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to work our way out there. So I'm going to jump on the marsh tile first, and now I'm being offered my production. So just remember that I'm not working any of these tiles right now that are inside my border. I'm only working this one marsh tile, and that's because that's where my citizen is. So let's take a look at production. Now, you'll be offered a scout or your infantry unit. I would recommend in this situation, you never take your infantry unit, and you will always take your scout. Scouting in Civ 7 is incredibly important, because not only do we have the Goodie Hut, we have access to see the Goodie Hut a long way away. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my scout. I'm going to use one of its special abilities, and it is the search ability. So I'm going to increase my range, and it's going to search out. You can kind of see the way that it's sitting up here, and that's going to actually show us through the fog of war all of our Goodie Huts. So these are essentially, these are the new Goodie Huts, and they change. So you've got a ruin here, you've got an encampment, you've got another ruin, and each of them offer different things. Here we've got a campfire, and we can choose which way we'd like to go first. You know, maybe we're thinking, well, actually, I can already see this looks like the edge of the coast. So I think that's probably going to be quite uncontested. So we might leave that. And another thing to note is, because we've got tundra down here on the south, there's a good chance that's our ice wall, which means that there's going to be no players down here. So this is going to be probably safe. This is going to be a little bit contested, but these are going to be our main one. So I'm thinking we might come up and around. So we want to plan that out from the very beginning of the game. Now, the next thing to note is that when you complete your first turn, your technology will be completed for you. You'll be given an initial technology. Everybody gets it. Everybody does it. It's agriculture. And that's going to increase the yields on your farms. It's also going to give you access to the granary. But you'll then have options to pick 3 new technologies. And it might be difficult looking at these techs, knowing which one to go. But I'll give you a little hint. Every single one of these techs is very important in the early game. Even sailing, if you're inland, is still going to be important, because that's going to unlock different technologies further down the path. So all 3 of these techs you're going to be wanting to get. Typically, the best way to determine what's the best technology that you need right now is to look at what you're working. So here we're working a clay pit. Okay, now we're not going to be working this clay pit for long. I'll give you a hint on that one. But we are going to be working a pasture soon, and we also have another, I think this also turns into a clay pit. So we could look to try and play around that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to look at animal husbandry, and it says that it gives +1 production to camps and woodcutters, +1 food on pastures. So that's going to be good. We've got the pasture. And then pottery, which gives +1 production on clay pits. So that is probably the best option for us, because realistically, we're working the clay pit now, we get the bonus now. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start researching pottery, and now I've got an opportunity to get my next piece of production. Now, I could go for a granary here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go for another scout. And I would recommend in the games that you play that you go for a second scout as well. And the whole reason behind that is simply because you've got access to a lot of goodie huts when you're playing Civ 7, and you've got access to see them from very far away. So we'll continue moving our scout out. Now, one of the things that I've done is I've just moved my scout over towards this position. And one of the things that you'll see is you can kind of calculate where it's going to go. So in this situation, it's telling me that it's going to take one movement to here, and then it will take another movement to here. And hello, what do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? This is a natural wonder. Now, this wasn't planned, but this is actually the best natural wonder in the game. This is called the Redwood Forest. This is one of my favorites. It is so damn beautiful. And of course, it's incredible. Have a look at the tile yields that you get from that. 2 food, 2 hammers, or 2 production, and 2 happy faces, also known as 2 happiness. That is incredible. This was not planned, I'll tell you right now, but we're definitely going to be looking to try and take that. Look, we'll talk a little bit more about natural wonders later on, because that is part of this video. I suspect this video might be quite a long video, so look, apologies in advance. You never know how long a video is going to be until you finish it. Anyway, let's keep moving forward. So we've grown enough right now. So one of the things to talk about is our growth and how that actually works. So in Civ 7, it's similar to previous Civ games, but there's one key difference, and that is that you're going to be accumulating food every single turn, and once you reach a certain threshold, you're going to grow. You don't actually pay for your citizens. So in previous titles, you paid food upkeep every single turn for each of those citizens to work. That's not the case here. You don't do that. Once they're out, they're out. Now, specialists, we're not going to talk about them in this video because they're a bit special and they're a bit more advanced. So they're going to get relegated to the advanced video. But for the moment, all you really need to know is you don't actually have to pay. So because of that, it means that you can track this number, and you'll see that it gets exponentially larger as the game goes on. Well, technically, it's not exponential, but it gets very big very quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive out here. We've got access now because we culture bombed. Remember that we culture bombed the last tile, so we can now look to come out here. We'll culture bomb that. And now that's going to give us access to resources. So I think this is a good opportunity just to go through the UI, talk a little bit about all the different things that are offered to you up here, because there's a lot of things to click. And look, people have complained about the UI. I'll say right now, from a UI perspective, there's a bit of stuff that needs work. But what we've got at the moment, it feels, I would probably say, bare bones. Is a nice way of putting it. There's still some good information on here, so let's talk a little bit about that. So we've got a gold treasury of 5 that's coming through, or rather a gold treasury of 15 with an income coming through of 5. If I click that, it'll bring up this page, which is the global yields breakdown. So we're going to avoid that for the moment, but you can see that we're just given a base of 5 yield. It doesn't come from anywhere. You just get 5 gold just for being you, for being a good old champ. Then we've got influence. Now, influence, we'll talk in depth about this later, but this is used throughout the game for a number of different things. The first thing is going to be dealing with other players in the game, or other leaders in the game. So we're playing as Catherine, so you might see Ashoka, you might see Benjamin, and that is to deal with that and to work with them. Further, it's also to deal with the city-states or barbarians. So they're called... they're called the independent people is what they're called now. So that is also used for that. And there are also other ways that you can be utilizing your influence throughout the game, which we'll talk more a little bit later. Then we've got science. So depending on how much science you've got, depends on how fast you're going to be researching your technology. The same with culture. So as an example down here, this is a single culture, and it would translate over to plus 11 culture from 10. So that's a 10% increase on culture. So they are some great dividends. Next up, we've got happiness. So we've got a base of 5 happiness, and that's coming through from our capital. So you can see right here, we've got 5 smiley faces. Now, if we hadn't settled on fresh water, what would happen is if we take a look over here, this 5 would be here. You'd have a 5 income, but you'd also have a -5 that would be showing somewhere around here. And that's just because of the way that happiness works with settling off cities. So if we take a look in here at the yield breakdown, fortunately for us, there is no negative in here, but that would be the case if we'd settled off fresh water. So the next thing that we've got is our settlement limit. So as you can see, it's -5 happiness in all settlements per settlement over the limit to a maximum of -35 happiness. So happiness has two components. It's got a global component and it's got a local component. So the global component is built up the same way you can think of income. So if I've got a +5 happiness, then that means that I'm building up 5 happiness every single turn. And that's building towards a celebration, which was previously known as a golden age. Now you can track your celebrations if you come into your social policies. So that's this little icon right here. And you can see how long it's going to take you until your next celebration. Celebrations are incredibly important in Civilization 7 because every celebration that you have, it's going to give you a policy slot. And policy slots, currently we don't have any available, but once we finish our first Civic, we will unlock that. But each time you go into a celebration, you will unlock a new policy slot. And there are some games where I will be so happy, I will just be going out of a celebration and I'll be re-entering one almost immediately. And by the end of it, you've got so many policy slots, you don't know what to do with them all. You can't hold all these policy slots. So happiness is an incredibly important component. So respecting the settlement limit is imperative in Civ 7. Now, it doesn't necessarily, I will say right now, this is not a hard cap. This is a soft cap, which means that you can go over it. It's currently 1 out of 3. You can go 10 out of 3 if you want. But every time you do go over that, that's going to be -5 for each of those cities that you got, or each of those settlements that you've got. Now, I want to clarify the word settlement, because this is a new word when it comes to Civ 7. A settlement, sorry for the S right there, a settlement is a city or a town. They are collectively settlements together. So we'll talk more about cities versus towns a little bit later on in the video. But for the moment, all you need to know is that a settlement is a city or a town. So it's not an independent people. If you meet them and you suzerain them, it is not those guys. Next up, let's talk a little bit more about what we've got down here. We've got age progress. So once this reaches 100%, then we will be moving over to the next age. We're not going to click that now. We'll click that later. We've already talked a little bit about tech, but I'll just show you through the whole tech tree. Now, some important things to highlight for you on the tech tree. If I would encourage you, if you're looking in here and you're like, oh, I don't know where I should go, I'm going to give you some hints, okay? Masonry, I really like this because it gives you the monument, and the monument is great because it's going to boost up that culture. I really like writing as well because writing is going to give you library, which is going to be boosting up your science. Further to that, I really like bronze working because it gives you the level 2 bonuses for your for your archer and for your infantry, which typically you're going to have quite a lot of them. And then finally, we've got mathematics, which is all the way down here. And you can see it provides the academy, which gives you a +4 science bonus. And this is very important. This carries over its importance into the exploration age, one of the most important buildings in Civ 7. Now, another important tech that we're not going to talk too much about, it's currency. This gives you a specialist, or gives you a specialist limit. Specialists work differently compared to in previous Civ games. You know what? We might talk a little bit about them a bit later on when we get closer. I'll add them on my list and just try and remember and hope that I've covered everything, because I've got a whole list of things that I want to talk to you guys about. And then we can talk about civics. So there's a couple of different components that we can talk about within the civics. But what's important to note is that everybody shares this civic tree. There will be unique civics depending on your civilization. So not your leader, but your civ. So if you pick Greece, you're going to have different unique civics to Rome. Everybody's got different ones, and you can't see those bonuses before you actually unlock chiefdom. So in 4 turns, we will do that. We will move on and we will grab that. But just to give you some important civics, if we were to go down the line here, I would say the important ones are mysticism. This is going to unlock your Pantheon. Discipline. This is going to unlock your army commander. Down on Code of Laws, this is going to unlock your merchant, which allows you to trade. And then entertainment is very important because it provides a settlement limit, which is over here, this bad boy. So that'll take us from 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 4. On top of that providing a settlement limit, we've also got organized military, which also provides a settlement limit. So that is important as well, because then that gives you from 4 to 5. And then if you're wanting to further increase your settlement limit, which of course you will be, because we want as many towns and cities as we possibly can, as many settlements as we can, irrigation has also got a +1 settlement limit. Now, there's other ways for you to get settlement limits throughout the game. We're not going to cover all of them, but those are your main 3, and you want to be keeping an eye out for them throughout the game. I would definitely encourage you throughout your game, try and think about these and go, oh, those are important, I want that. So that's very, very relevant to keep in mind. Now, one thing to note is that not each technology, but most technologies, most civics do have the ability or do have a mastery option. When you do the mastery, it needs to be, you need to be doing the first tech, and then you have the ability to do the mastery, and they offer you different bonuses. Some masteries are better than others, so some you'll really look to go for. So as an example, one of the masteries I love going for is the writing mastery, because if we think about the library, it provides us a base of 2 science, and if we're lucky, we might get that up to 4. And when we research it, it's going to give us +1 science. So that'll take us up to 5. And then we also gain a codex, which we'll talk a little bit about in coming up, but that is also going to provide you some science. That provides you +2 science. So that is quite a nice boost to science. On top of that, you also gain the ability to steal a technology. So that is a whole lot of important stuff right there. So that's a really good mastery, but we'll talk more about masteries later on. And by the same token, over on the side of your civics, another good mastery that you should be looking to try and grab early is the mastery here for mysticism, which gives +2 food in all settlements, or rather it gives a policy for +2 foods in all settlements. So that means that when you come over into the policy screen, you'll have the option to put that card into your government. So a really, really nice policy. So let's continue moving on. And I think we've spent quite some time talking about this, so I'm going to move on over. And we've got our first option for the Goodie Hut. And this is one of the great things about Civ 7. I remember back in the day playing in Civ 6 and playing as I can't remember remember who it was, but having I think, was it actually back in Civ 5? It's been so long. I've got thousands of hours in both of them, but they all kind of blend into the one game. Having the option to pick which bonus you want from the Goodie Hut, it's reminiscent of that. It feels very good. But in this situation, we're going to go ahead with the culture, +22 culture. That's going to almost push that one over. And now with our second scout, instead of following this one, we're going to loop down around this way. And so what we're going to do is we're just going, we can just do a right click like that. That is super duper easy for us to do. Then we don't have to think about it, don't have to watch him. And because we finished the scout, we've now got production. So let's go ahead and let's choose our granary. We'll put it down and we'll just go ahead and we're going to keep stuff simple today. We're just going to put it down where we get a bonus, and we pretty much get a bonus everywhere here. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in our main capital tile, and that's going to slowly build that up. And now we've finished chiefdom. So let's take a look at our government policies, and we've also finished pottery. So we've unlocked our first 2 policies, +2 culture on the palace, or +1 production and +1 science on the palace. And I'm not going to overthink this right now. I will just tell you that each game is going to be different for you. You might have a culture focus and want to focus on culture. You might have a production focus and want to focus on production or science. One of the things that I like to do is I look at my start and I go, okay, how much would this because production is by far the most important thing in the early game. Culture's arguably pretty important as well, especially because you get 2 of it. But I think for me, looking at this and going, okay, I've only got 6 production. So going up to 7 production here would be really, really big. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put that in. I think that's quite an important thing to do. So I'm going to go and plug that in, and we can always come back and change it later. We've also got another narrative choice here. So we can create a trade route, we can build a library and a monument, or we can just take the gold. And I would say whenever you've got the option to begin a quest, you would always want to begin that quest. And here you can choose, okay, are we going to look for +25% production towards merchants in all settlements, or do we want +50 gold? And I would say, look, this one's definitely doable, and being able to train merchants in all settlements is nice. 50 gold is also good, but I'm going to go ahead and do this trade route. This is going to be a super easy one for us to complete. So that'll put a journal entry over here on the left-hand side of the screen. It's not that intrusive. You don't really have to do it if you don't want to, but it will give you a nice little reward if you do. So we've now got our next growth, and our option is definitely going to be on our horses. That's going to provide us that pasture. And once we finished our granary, that should improve the amount of resources that we're getting from that. Next up, we're going to go to our animal husbandry, and we're just going to straight ahead go into that. And now we've got a choice. Do we go into our standard civics, or do we take a look at our unique civics to the Greeks? Each civ has got unique civics, whether it's the Antiquity Age, the Exploration Age, the Modern Age. They are all different. They all do different things. It is kind of crazy. And can I just say right now, I've got more than 200 hours in Civ 7, and I have barely even touched the Exploration Age. I've never played the Modern Age. I think I've gone to like turn 20 in the Exploration Age, because I've just been so focused on Antiquity, because there's so much to learn. There's so much to study in Antiquity, and I just want to try and learn and focus and do as much as I can. There is just so much to take in. So let's have a look at some of the options that you've got here. You've got access to unique buildings like the Odeon, or a unique building down here like the Pantheon. And if you combine them together, they actually form into a unique quarter. And we'll talk more about the quarter a little bit later on in the game, but essentially what happens is when you put a building down, you've got an option to put a second building with it. And when you do that, it forms a quarter. And if you can form a unique quarter, which is built by having 2 unique buildings together, then you can get a special bonus. That's essentially it. You've also got Masteries for each of these, and they're going to provide you different bonuses. So this is a nice little bonus here, +1 combat strength for each city-state you're a suzerain of. And over here in particular, we've got the most powerful bonus, which is the Delian League. So it gives you extra influence towards initiating endeavors, and that's part of the diplomacy, which we'll talk about more later. But for the moment, we're just going to stick with mysticism. I don't value these too highly in the early game, and we're still in the early game. Now we can move on to government. Jeez, it never stops. We're going to be talking all day. We're at 30 minutes through this video, and I'm barely a quarter of the way through my list. But look, it might be a long video, so apologies in advance if it is. You got 3 different options for government: culture, or rather, classical republic, despotism, or oligarchy. I'll keep it simple with you. I'll keep it 100. Oligarchy is pretty much always the best. Plus 20% food is just always going to be great. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're from, it's always going to be great. But depending on the strategy that you're going for, you might change your mind. You might say, you know what, I think the extra production towards wonders is really going to help me in this game. Or maybe the extra science is going to help me towards that science victory. I'm going to take that. But today, we're just going to take oligarchy. We're just going to keep it simple. Let's take a look at where our next movements are. So here we've got an interesting decision. So this is one of the one of the things I wanted to talk to you about earlier with unit movement. So when you move onto a ruin like this, or any of the Goodie Huts that you'll see, you're going to use all of your movement points. So one of the things that you can do is sort of forecast where you're going to be. So here, as an example, we're going to go out to this position, and then we're just going to straight away move on to this ruin. So what I'm going to do is instead move to this tile, and then I'm going to pop my search. And that search ability is going to reveal the area around. It's going to show me that there's another Goodie Hut up here, and I'm still going to be able to take this Goodie Hut next turn the same way that I would have been able to anyway. And that way, I basically get a free search in by doing that. So now we've got an option between gold and culture, and look, we're probably going to take the culture. I almost always take the culture. I think it's a really nice thing to do, having the culture early on. And we've got another option down here. We automatically moved down onto this position. And once again, we're just going to take the culture. We're getting all these cultural offerings, and we're happy to take them. All right, well, we'll continue moving on. And we've got another campfire up here, and we're going to follow that same route, or follow that same example. Now, I'm not sure whether we can actually move over onto this in the next tile, but you know what? We're going to risk it just to get the biscuit and see. We'll get another search in for free. Well, let's see if it was for free. It was for free, because now we can move onto this tile, and once again, now here we can choose to take the culture again. Look, we're going to do it. We're going to take the culture, and the reason why we want to take the culture is because we're racing towards mysticism, and mysticism is a very important opening civic that is going to allow you to unlock your Pantheon. And every single AI that I play against absolutely loves rushing towards their Pantheon. So if you want to get a good one, you're going to have to rush this as quickly as you can. And you can see, even though we got, how many was it? 1, 2, 3, 4 cultural Goodie Huts. We're still not first. We're still not first. Somebody has taken fertility rights. Somebody has taken Monument of the Gods. Now, when it comes to my recommendation for Pantheons, I would say it's actually a really good Pantheon in Civ 7. God of the Sun. This is incredibly good. Back in Civ 6, this Pantheon, or the Pantheon that provided this bonus, wasn't as good, but in Civ 7, this is actually really good. When you compare it to the other Pantheons that are in here, it is it's very, very strong. So I'm going to go ahead and take that. If the growth was available, I would definitely take the growth, but it goes quickly. Other good ones, if you're curious to know, so Monument of the Gods is also good. It gives you additional production towards wonders. Another good one is City Patron Goddess, which gives +3 influence, which actually goes very, very well with our start, because we're looking to try and focus as much as we can on influence. But I'm going to just go ahead and take God of the Sun anyway, because I'm in the mood for God of the Sun. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, another thing to note with the UI is you can pick what you actually want to do at any given time. So if, as an example, I want to just focus on my production, I can just click on the production and then choose what I want to actually produce. If I want to look at my Civic that I need to choose, I can do that. I don't have to do my growth right now. So that's another thing to note down here at the bottom. Another tip I will give you, and this is one thing, I literally just learned this today after 200 hours. Go into your options, go into keyboard and mouse, hit configure, and go to next turn, and change this key, which I think will be set as a default of E. Change it to, it says mouse X1, but it's like the mouse button on the side of the mouse. Do that, and you know the one that you use to like go up and, or no, what do you even use that for? Or to go back on a web page. So if you want to go look at the previous one, that's what I do. And then, so what that will do is I'm just going to hit that button, and it's going to take me to my next task. What do I need to do now? So we're going to look at growth here, and we're going to ask ourselves, are there any tiles that we really want to grow to around our capital? And the answer is no. I don't see anything here that's really calling out to me. We've got some lovely tiles down here, but remember, when it comes to your growth as a city, you can grow a maximum of 3 tiles away from your city center. So that's the same for all settlements, for towns as well. So we can't actually get this gold, because if you count, we're 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's not going to do it. So realistically, if I'm looking at this, the big thing for me is production. And if I can combine that with food, then I'm going to be extra happy. So this tile right here, lovely tile. We'll go ahead and we'll take that. It gives us another clay pit. So I think we've got 3 clay pits now. So we're really starting to build up. I'm going to hit the mouse button again. That's going to take me to this screen where I can choose what I want to build. And considering we just found a natural wonder up towards the north, I think that it's probably a good idea that we get a settler out just to settle this as quickly as we can, because the power that this natural wonder provides is incredible. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a settler in the queue. I don't know exactly where I'm going to settle right now, but all I know is I want to settle this natural wonder. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go pick my next civic. So discipline is important because we want to gain our commander. So we'll go ahead and do that. And once again, now that we've got the culture for mysticism out of the way, I don't see it as such a priority. Discipline, it doesn't really matter to me when this comes online. So instead of going for culture here, I think it's more important for us to go into science. And that unlocks us animal husbandry. And by doing that immediately, it means now we've got an extra food on this tile, and we can choose our technology. So we can go for sailing. Now, we don't have any fishing boats yet. So instead of going for sailing, I'm just going to go for riding instead, because that's going to give us access to our library. So let's keep moving on. We've got units that require commands, and I've got a couple of options as to how I can play this, but I'm just going to I'm not going to think too much about it, right? We've kind of done talking about scouts. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to bring these scouts back to my base, just because we don't need to talk about them anymore. We've talked about scouts. We've talked about movement plenty in this game. And let's go take a look at our settling screen. So once again, it's just like the start, where we've got our lens naturally. When we click on our settler, it will just come up there for us. And we can see, okay, where do we want to settle? We want to settle somewhere with natural water, or with fresh water. So we're going to move in this direction. We know that as a matter of fact. So it looks like there's lots of fresh water towards this top side. So an oasis will provide you fresh water. Obviously, a river is going to provide you fresh water as well. So any of these tiles are quite nice. So the closer we can get to our capital, the better. So I'm even thinking somewhere like this might be really nice, because it's going to give us fresh water. It will give us access to all of these natural wonder tiles, and it will also give us access to this gold, which we really want. Gold is an incredibly powerful resource in Civ 7. It is probably like one of the best resources that there are. And the other thing to remember is it stacks. So if you can get like 2 or 3 of them, it's insane, right? Like plus 60% gold towards purchasing buildings. Wild. Absolutely wild. Now, next thing that we're going to do is we're just going to come in and we're just going to make another settler. And the reason why is because we've got a settlement limit of 3. So pretty much every single game for me opens up the same. I go scout, 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 and then I'll normally look to try and get a settler after that point. If I can't afford to get a settler, so you need to wait until 5 population to be able to make a settler, I might put a couple of turns into a granary. But every single one is the same. Now what we're going to do with our scout is we're just going to put it on lookout mode. So I'm just going to sit here, and that's actually going to sit him up here like he's fortified, looking over absolutely everything, and he's just going to stay here. So it extends out his line of sight, and I'm not going to have to talk to him. I'm not going to have to do anything. He's just going to be chilled for the rest of the game. Now, we're not going to be talking about natural wonders. Or, sorry, we're not going to be talking about, how do I even say this? Natural disasters. We have obviously talked about natural wonders. We're not going to talk about natural disasters, just simply because... it's something you'll have to work out on your own. That's one you'll have to work out on your own there. Sorry, Chief. All right, our next growth option, and I think we just might move. Let's go down over here. This looks quite nice because it gives us the culture. It also gives us the hammer. And let's move on to our next thing that we will begin talking about. So one of the things that we didn't really touch on up towards the top of the screen was resource allocation. Now, this is something that we don't have access to at the moment, so we'll come back to that. Great works. This is a very rarely interacted option or on the UI. I come in here maybe twice a game. It is very rare that you're coming in here and looking at your great works. For your view religion button, at least in the Age of Antiquity, you're not really going to be doing it like, oh, that's what my Pantheon does. It doesn't really do much. And then finally, you've got view player unlocks, and I don't actually think I've ever used this button at all. So I don't even really know what, I mean, I can understand what the purpose is, like for people who want to come in and have a look, but yeah, I don't really see the use. Anyway, other than that, we've also got the player banner. So you can hover over each of the players and their banners, and that will tell you how much they're making, how many cities they've got, what their happiness is, all that good stuff. So this is an important thing to keep in mind, because if you're playing up against a really strong AI player, it's going to, oh, we can actually see that there is an AI player over here. It's going to influence the way that you play. So let's talk a little bit about natural wonders and just how powerful they are and why they're so powerful. So this natural wonder in particular is incredibly powerful. It's the best one in the game because not only are the base tiles really good, right? Food, production, and happiness, but it also provides +1 culture and science on vegetated tiles. So if ever you see a natural wonder, you should try and look to settle it, as long as it's not going to anger your neighbors. But we've been very fortunate here. It literally just appeared right in front of us. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of expanding to this tile, I'm going to expand to the dates. And that is because the dates provide a base of 3, and I also get +2 food for the dates themselves. So I'm getting these 3 food, and then I'm getting an extra 2 on top. So if we take a look here, I've got 3 at the moment from my base yield. I'm going to click this, and that's going to go from 3 up to 6, and it will be a total of 8 food that I've got now. And the reason why, because I want to grow big. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that date, and then we'll come around and we'll collect all of these. If this was any other resource, there's a good chance we wouldn't have prioritized it. Maybe with the exception of like some Cowlin, or maybe some, or even Cowlin we wouldn't have, because Cowlin would just go straight to the capital, because that is a different resource type. And wow, congratulations, we're on to our next point, resource types. There are 3 different resource types in Civilization 7. Empire resources. Actually, there's more, but we're looking at antiquity right now. Okay, there are 3 different types of resources in the Antiquity Age. The first one is your Empire resources. The second one are your City resources, and the third one are your bonus resources. This took me a long time to work out. On top of that, you cannot touch your resources unless you've acquired a resource that turn. Once the resources are slotted in, that's it. There's no swapping them until you acquire a new resource. At that point, you can then move them around however you like. Empire resources are quite literally resources for your entire empire. They stack as well. So we've got horses. Cavalry units gain +1 combat strength and an additional +1 against infantry units. So if you've got 5 horses, that's +5 combat strength for cavalry units. As an example, if we take a look at the, if we go in here and we take a look at Mongolia, one of the bonuses, or one of the ways to unlock them is if you improve 3 horses, you will then be able to play Mongolia in the Exploration Age. That's because they love their horses, the Mongolians. So that's one of the ways that you can unlock the Mongolians. Let's talk about city and bonus resources, because this took me a while to actually wrap my head around. City resources can only be allocated in a city. They can't go in a town. So at the moment, Thebai is a town. We can convert it to a city. It costs us 300 gold, and we don't have the money to do it. So we're not going to be able to do that. So that means that when it comes to resource allocation, we can't put the Cowlin in here. And I remember wondering, why the heck can't this go in here? That's the reason why. It's a city resource. So some resources are city, some resources are bonus. When it comes to bonus resources, you can put these anywhere. You can put them in a city, you can put them in a town, and the whole idea is going to be when you've got 5, 6, 7 settlements, you're going to want your city resources in cities, you're going to want your town resources in towns. And the reason why they've done that, because you might look at that and say, well, that's a silly thing. Like, why did they do that? That's kind of silly. Well, let me explain why. The reason why is this right here. So you've got +10 culture on this tile here, silk, and they need to be able to balance this. And there are other tiles as well that provide different bonuses, but basically, when it comes to balancing things, they need to make sure that all of the resources are balanced appropriately. And because of the way that cities and towns generate resources differently, which we'll talk about further later. Gosh, this is going to be a long video, isn't it? Jeez, if you're watching this one, maybe you're on your commute or something. You might have to pause it. It is wow, we're 43 minutes in and we're not even halfway. There's a lot to learn. So what we're going to do with our scout is we're going to move up here. We haven't even talked about the independent people just yet, but look, I suspect we're probably going to have to talk a little bit about them right now as we are under attack. That's not good. We might even lose that city. That's quite funny. We're just gonna get a we'll get a hoplite out there. Can we afford to purchase a unit? We can. All right. So what we're gonna do is, instead of making a hoplite down here, you can see that we've actually got, look at this. We've got a friend who's coming up the river. So instead of making a military unit and getting it all the way up here, what I'm gonna do instead is I'm going to just buy a hoplite. And the reason why I'm gonna buy a hoplite here is because he is very strong and he's going to defend my town. And what's going to happen in this scenario is my hoplite, who just disappeared, there he is, my hoplite is going to be defending the city, and then once the walls, or once the gates of the city fall, so to say, then my hoplite will be standing. But the hoplite will actually buff up, and he'll be able to attack every single turn. So by just putting him in there, that's going to give a huge bonus to Thabai. So let's move on. Let's take a look at our production. We've got a couple of different options available to us. We've got a brickyard for +4 production. So we'll go ahead now and look at our adjacencies, and we can see that all of these provide a +4. So what we want to do is go, okay, well, hold on. What are we building? We're building a brickyard, which improves clay pits and mines. We've also got a saw pit, which improves camps and woodcutters. In fact, we're already working this tile. We like this tile. It gives us production. It gives us culture. We don't want to put our stuff on this tile. So what we're going to do is we're going to instead put it somewhere else. Which tile aren't we working? We're not working either of these ones. Which is the lesser of these two? It is this one. Does it provide the same yield? Yes, it does. Then we will build our brickyard there. And that's how we sort of do our thinking process with regard to that. Now, when it comes to our next settlement, we're looking at resources, we're looking at how close it is, and this right here is looking like a beautiful little cluster of resources. So we're going to head out over there. There's a lovely spot for us here with that is a flood risk, but look, I think we'll take that. Now, we can also look to put it on the top side here. But we want to make sure, so we want to keep that 3 tiles in mind. So if we look here from the silk, we want to pick this up. So 1, 2, 3. This is our spot right here. This is going to guarantee we get all of these tiles. You could go for something like 1, 2, 3 and go here and then go 1, 2, 3. But this is going to be able to reach 1, 2, 3. This will reach the cotton. So we're going to allow that to stay there. And I think that's going to be our perfect spot. So we'll just tell our settler to come out here. Now, anybody who's good at Civ 7, like super duper good at Civ 7, or even just good at Civ, will know that what I've done here is a rookie mistake. And that is that I've told my settler to come out here and just kind of like head out into the wilderness. And the reason why that's a rookie mistake is we actually want to do it every single turn, and we want to go tile by tile. And that's because if there is a potential threat to our settler, we want to make sure that we're there to see it and to stop it from getting into danger. But one of the cool things about settlers in Civilization 7 is that they actually don't get captured. In fact, you can't capture them at all. You can kill them, but they have health. That's the cool thing about. So they've made it a little bit more friendly towards those unforgiving mistakes that we do often make, and because of that, it means you can be a little bit more risque with how you control your settlers. So let's get to it. We've got some population to put down in our expansion over in Thabai. So we'll go ahead and we'll expand first over to our lovely natural wonder. And now over on this position, we will begin to work our magic. You can see that already the incoming independent warriors, which we'll call the barbarians for now, are having some trouble. So now that we've completed both discipline as well as mysticism, we're just going to go straight into Code of Laws because that's going to unlock the merchant. Very important. It also gives us oratory, which is going to provide us more influence every turn. So we want to try and maximize that. And we've got a celebration. So we can choose between food or production to buildings. Now, we are making buildings at the moment, and we do also have the ability to make more buildings. So I think that that's actually a pretty decent way to go. But in saying that, 20% food, it's going to affect both of our towns, so we'll take that. And we'll also go for +2 culture on the palace. That'll take us from 11 and push us up to 13. So that is going to be a welcome addition as well. And let's see if we can meet this town. There we go. It's going to be Ashoka. Let's go say g'day. I am Ashoka, the great king at the center of the world and profound sinner. Well, Ashoka, it is very nice to meet you. We're going to always do a friendly greeting because we want to stay on good terms with him. And when we do that, we're actually going to be able to see that in real terms if we check in with him over here. So you can see that on our first meet, we get a +20 bonus to our relationship because we did the friendly meet, which cost us a little bit of influence, and we also share a government. So he's going to think a little bit more highly of that, of us because of that. Now, because we've done that, it means that he is more likely to accept subsequent deals that we offer him. So as an example, I'm playing Catherine, and she is a scientific and a cultural leader. That means that I've got access to scientific collaboration and cultural collaboration. So we'll go ahead right now, and we're going to offer him a research collaboration and a cultural exchange. So he's accepted it, which means he's not supporting it. So there are 3 different levels to this, and we'll do the same with the cultural. So that's going to provide us a really nice boost to our science and our culture. We want to do this as soon as we can in all the games, but there is some depth to it, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because it's quite an advanced technique. Yeah, we want to try and get that out as quickly as we possibly can, just because we can start generating science and culture as soon as we do that. So we'll move our scout back now because he's done everything that he needs, and we've now got access to our army commander, which will move up to the front. We'll talk about him shortly. Let's get you out over onto this expansion. Do we choose between science or culture? We'll go with the science, and we've got a growth. We'll grow out over to this this tile. And we'll move into, probably go into masonry just to pick up some extra culture. And it looks like we've cleaned this up, but we do have now an attack on the south. So we'll make our way down, and it looks like they've actually got quite a bit in here. So we might have to think about retreating for the moment and just try and look to heal ourselves, repair up. We've got another expansion that we're going to be able to do, another growth that's happened. And we've got a diplomatic request that's come through. So for Ashoka, I'm just going to, you know what? I think we can take this happiness. And by me taking this happiness, okay, so just to talk you through the 3 options there, I can reject it. That's going to cost me to do that, and that's going to influence our relationship negatively. And I also have the ability to just support his endeavor, or I can just kind of accept it. So supporting it allows more resources to go through, and it's also, if you've got the endeavor with another leader, it's going to give you a bonus to your friendship, and you can see that that's pushed us into the friendly territory now, which means that he's much less likely rather to declare war on us, which is what we want, right? We want to play a peaceful game until we don't, and we want to be the ones who decide. We don't want the enemy to be the ones who decide. All right, so we'll settle our next city. We'll take the cotton, and the cotton, instead of it being worked in the Corinthus town, this is a great opportunity for us to talk about the differences between cities and towns. For your city has got a production queue. That means if I want to produce a unit, I can produce a unit out of the city. However, if you look at a town, it doesn't have the ability to produce. You have the ability to purchase, but you don't have the ability to produce. And that's one of the key distinctions between a city and a town. Further to that, when it comes to actually purchasing things in the town, you can only purchase select things. So the brickyard, the granary, the saw pit, the altar. You can also purchase walls. You can also purchase a key if you've got water nearby. You can also purchase military units to defend the city, or to defend the settlement, rather. But when it comes to the town, or rather when it comes to the city, you've got access to a much wider range of buildings. If we take a look at all the buildings that we've got access to, academy, amphitheater, arena, barracks, as you can suspect, there's quite a few of them that you wouldn't have access to if you had a town. And that's one of the key differences between these two. Now, when it comes to towns and the fact that they've still got production, what do they do with it? Well, the production is actually converted into gold. And that's one of the main ways that you're going to generate gold in Civ 7. If you take a look at Thebai has got a lot of hammers that are coming through, a lot of production that's coming through from these tiles, 9. But all of that is just getting converted straight into gold. If we actually take a look at the gold here and the amount of gold that we're working, we know that we're working this tile, this tile, this tile, this tile. We can only see 1 gold. Yet that production, that 9 production, is converted over into 10 gold. And that's going to be supporting our treasury. So that's where the production goes on your town versus a city. Now, we're about to hit 6 population over here. And when we hit 7, actually, give me a sec here. We're going to have to focus. Army commander, get into position, my friend. He might cop a hit here or 2. We're gonna keep pumping out units. We might move into a slinger. We can look to try and purchase as well. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hit my fortification button here. And by me doing this is going to give my unit a little bit more stats. Got an opportunity to grow once again. And we're going to look to grow over towards the culture and the production. And we're going to heal our hoplite. We want to heal our hoplite just for the moment. We've taken a little bit of damage up here. That's absolutely okay. I say a little bit. 41 damage. Jeez Louise. So one of the key things that we want to be doing in Civilization 7 is keeping our units alive. So instead of leaving this slinger here, I'm going to move him back so that he has got, or zone of control is being exerted by the hoplite here, which means that this warrior won't be able to come around and attack. It's going to have to go slowly, and we'll attack from distance. For our hoplite, we're going to, once again, hoplite. we're going to build our fortifications. So our fortifications are now complete, so it means that if the enemy attacks into us, we're going to have bonuses. We've also met Lafayette. Hello, Lafayette. And once again, we're going to do a friendly greeting. We don't know where he is. He could be close to us, and we want to make sure that we keep friendly with him until we're not friendly with him. We'll grow, once again, out over to the cotton. And I totally forgot because we were talking about the cities versus towns. Let's get back to the cities versus towns. So in resource allocation, if we take a look at resources, the cotton provides us 2 food and 2 production. So while the 2 food can be used in Corinthos town, the 2 production just gets converted into gold. So you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to keep Corinthos town growing here with the cotton that it's got? Or do you want to bring it back to the capital? Because the capital actually makes use of that production. It doesn't convert it into gold, it makes use of it. And because of that, I would argue in the early game, even if you've got cotton, which is a town resource, you would want it in your capital because this is for production. And if we were to do the math here, right? 15 production, an extra 4, you're talking about like, what is that? An extra 20%, more than 20% extra production? You better believe I'm putting that cotton into the capital. Get in there, buddy. All right, so next up, we got some sheep. We've got more stuff to stick into the capital, and the other thing is sheep, as an example, also provide production. It's going in there. Now we're up to 21. And look, once we have a few more resources and we've got no more space in the capital, then we can definitely justify it. But for the moment, we're under military attack. We need to make sure that we've got as many pieces of production ready to go. You can see that we've got quite a lot of aggression here. So now's a good time for us to continue talking about combat. So in this situation, you can see that the warrior has again moved down towards this angle. He really wants to try and take us out. So what we're going to do is we're going to move down, and he's going to have to follow us. So we can now choose with this slinger, where do we want to go? So we'll come back out over here, and we're trying to essentially keep a constant distance between us. And now we can look to engage with our hoplite here on the enemy, and that will weaken them a little bit as well. How quickly are these towns growing? These towns are growing very... Oh, it's because of the speed that we're playing on, actually. We're playing on online speed. So we've got back to our relationships. So we've got 3 options: support, accept, reject. So if we reject it, obviously it's going to get worse. If we support it, it is going to be considered much more greatly than if we just simply accept it. But for us to support it, we actually need the influence in the first place. Now, we're fortunate. We've got a lot of influence that's been accumulated, so we can accept it. Another thing to note is maybe you don't want to accept it. Maybe you actually prefer getting influence rather than getting happiness, which is definitely, you know, we've got 31 happiness. The more influence, the better for us. And you know, we don't really care about our relationship with Lafayette, so we're just going to go ahead. Even though we had the influence to support it, we're not going to. And we're going to save that influence for something else, like perhaps dealing with these barbarians. Now, we don't know where they live, but when we do, then we will definitely look to try and meet them. Now, we've also used a cool little technique over here, which is called scout baiting. So, essentially, you could just kind of leave your scout around enemy units, and they will attack it. And instead of attacking into my slingers here, they've now got a higher health pool. So one of the issues that I've got is that this slinger is now under attack from 2 different warriors. So in this position, I've got 2 options. Number 1, I can look to escape out the back, and they will follow me out through that way. Or I could go for a different route. What I'm going to do with this slinger is I'm going to focus this down. Now, how are we doing up here? Okay, we're doing fine. I'm going to focus this down, and it's going to leave it with just a little bit of health. So now what I'm going to do is take this hoplite, attack out the back, and that's going to clear this tile. And now I can bring my slinger into the city center. And even though there's zone of control, I still have 1 movement point. Slinger, why are you slinging on that tile? Slinger, you should be slinging from this tile. I don't know why my slinger's slinging from this tile. A little bit of a weird graphical bug. Hopefully it gets fixed up. Anyway, and now we can use our hoplite here and stab from this side. And then that way our slinger, because as long as he's on that city tile, he's actually going to be safe from any aggression from that warrior. So let's continue moving. Now, here's a good offer. We'll take this. 6 culture per turn. Absolutely. We will support that 100%, Lafayette. Thank you very much. A very nice offering. Much preferred than anything else. So now we'll look for a saw pit. Instead of looking to put it down over here, we're just going to straight away take the bonus yields that we get. So that is a very nice yield. And now that we know that we're going to be okay, we're going to be able to defend ourselves, we'll be fine. We'll look to push out in this position and just try and clear up these troops. And we've defended ourselves well in the early... Oh my lord, it never stops! Okay. At this point, I would like to stop talking about combat. So you know what we're going to do? We're not going to focus too much on the game. I'm just going to talk to you about things. All right, so when it comes to influence, we've already talked about the fact that you can spend it when you're speaking to leaders. But one of the things that you might want to do in the early game is avoid spending it. What do I mean by that? When you meet a leader and you're at turn 7 or turn 8, you haven't saved up a whole lot of influence. And one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to offer you their agreement, whatever that may be. So instead of spending yours straight away and saying, hey, do you want to have a research agreement? Do you want to have a cultural exchange? Hold it. Hold it. There's a good chance they're going to offer you something. And if they offer you something, you want to accept it. And the reason why is the following. This happened to me in a real game over on my main channel, which has got a few more subscribers than this. Essentially what happened was I offered him something and he took it. And then I met a second person. And when I met that second person, I no longer had enough influence to give them a positive greeting. So, and you can see that stays in their memory, right? The first meet is plus 20. So they just had a first meet of 0. On top of that, the leader agenda immediately was like a -5. And then further, we had a different government, which also gave us a negative bonus. And now all of a sudden they didn't like me. So then after they met me, they offered up a research collaboration. And because I didn't have influence, I couldn't accept it. And I couldn't support it. I could accept it, but I couldn't support it. And because of that, it meant that we didn't have any positive bonus. So you can see supported endeavor with another leader, +5. Endeavor with another leader, +19. Because of that, we didn't have this bonus. And eventually, the relationship continued to worsen. They denounced me. They declared war on me. And I stopped the game. Essentially, everything spiraled out of control because I spent my influence on one leader instead of just saving it, just keeping it, just holding it. And look, there's going to be circumstances where it happens, where you can't really, you can't avoid it. You meet 3 leaders at the same time. There's going to be one that you can't say hi to in a nice way. And that's just unfortunately how it goes sometimes. But knowing that, being aware of that is half the battle. So there you go. Nice little tip for you. Okay, let me go down my list here. And talk more about it. So another thing to point out is we've got the Civilopedia. If you've got any questions, you need to see anything, you want to know anything, check out the Civilopedia. Maybe you're interested in the Redwood Forest, you can just type that in and it will take you there. Not only will it take you to the Redwood Forest, but it will also take you to natural wonders. So you can check out all the other natural wonders. My personal favorite is the Redwood Forest, but if I didn't have the Redwood Forest, I would go for the Great Barrier Reef. A really cool wonder. Definitely the best looking one. I love it. So that's another cool feature. So make sure you check that one out. What else have we got? Combat and healing. We've talked about combat. Just to explain healing. So you are going to heal more up in your own territory than you are outside your territory. Outside your territory, it's +10. Inside your territory, it's +15. So you want to try and do that as much as you possibly can. Further, if you've got a scout, using this fortification, or rather this lookout button, will heal you up. So if you've got a scout that's over on the other side of the map, instead of hitting the heal until fully or rest until fully healed button, just use this button here, lookout, instead, and that will just continue healing you up anyway. So that's my recommendation. We've talked about commanders a little bit, but we haven't really shown you how they work. So just to show you some cool techniques that you can use. Well, I mean, it's the whole thing with the commander in Civ 7. So let's do it. This button right here, this bad boy, add to army. If you've got a commander nearby, which we do, we can just put him in right there. And now with my commander, I can then move the commander, and that moves the army. And there's a couple of great reasons why this is, or why I like this. But number one is because it makes it so much easier to transport a lot of units. I can have up to 6 units in here. And because of that, it means that I don't have to click each one of those 6 units, and I don't have to click the Great General with it. I can just click my army commander and move them all. And when I want to get rid of them all, I just hit this button here, deploy, and they all just go, brrr, and they just immediately come out. On top of that, with your army commander, he's the guy that is now going to be earning all your experience. Your units are disposable. You don't care if you lose them. I mean, you do care. Try not to lose them. But if you do, it's not a big deal, because he gains experience and he has access to 5 different potential ways to level up through the game. Once you've leveled up all the way, you then have an ability for commendation points, which give you huge bonuses like +5 combat strength or +1 command radius. So you've got a command radius around you, which is this. +1 command radius means all of a sudden you've got this, which is like double the tiles. I mean, I don't know exactly, but I would suspect it's probably close to double the tiles. So it is very, very powerful. On top of that, to get the commendation points, you need to go all the way down a tree. It doesn't mean you have to fill it out completely. It just needs to be one side of the tree. and each tree is different depending on what you've got. But for me, by far, the number one tree I go to is Assault. I almost always come down the right side of the tree just because I'm always looking to play ranged units rather than melee units. But it depends on your playstyle and what you're doing. So that is it with the commander. You've also got other options as well, so you can reinforce. I don't know whether we can actually reinforce from here, but there's another button that will occasionally appear, and you can click it. It's a reinforce button, and you click on on your commander, and they will literally just disappear off the map and go join the commander. It's a super cool feature. Try and look out for it wherever you can. Next thing we'll talk about is leader attribute points. So if I click on my leader profile, sometimes you'll see a number up here. That's what that number means, is that you've up right here, you've got a point to spend. That's what that's saying. So if you click on that point, or if you just click on your profile picture and then go to attributes, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trees to go down. Yes, they're all specific. These last with you throughout the entirety of a game. So that's Antiquity, Exploration, and into Modern era. It is a really deep pathway, and you can prioritize into it a lot. Just to kind of give you a bit of an idea, I was playing a game with Confucius, and I think I got all the way on my expansionist tree. I got all the way down to here, +1 specialist limit in all cities, and I got here in the Age of Antiquity. So if you want to, you can go all the way down here. And some of the ways that you can gather points here. So we've already talked about Momentos. Now, we don't have any equipped at the moment. I don't even think we can see it. Yeah, our Momentos normally appear down here, but we don't have any equipped. So you can get points from Momentos if you want to come into the game with Momentos. Another way that you can get Momentos is through World Wonders. So as an example, if you complete the Hanging Gardens, that's going to give you +1 expansionist attribute point. If you were to complete Terracotta Army, you would get +1, I think it's +1 military point, I want to say. No, it is not. It's not Terracotta Army. There is something that gives you, there you go, Mausoleum of Theodoric, which gives +1 militaristic attribute. So that's essentially where you're getting that from. So let's move on to our next part. So we've talked about Pantheons. When it comes to religion in Civ 7, you don't have any in the Age of Antiquity. It comes in the Exploration Age, but if I would recommend something to you, it would just be, try and stick to the Antiquity Age, at least initially. Maybe run a couple times through it, find your feet, and then look to move into Exploration, because there is so much to learn. There is so much to learn, and as I've said, I've played 200 hours, dude. I've gone into the Exploration Age like 30 turns. It is not a lot that I've played, and that is very intentional. It's because I think it's really important to understand. I mean, I'm a bit more autistic than the average person, so I guess that's part of the reason why I do that. Okay, so we've spoken about expansion. We've spoken about getting or finding your expansions and locating fresh water, locating resources, and finding clusters of resources. These are really important for you to find. If we were going to defend this settlement, we would buy a hoplite right now. Normally, we want to go for a melee unit first, just to give us a little bit more strength. Okay, so now we can talk a little bit about warehouse buildings. Do we have enough gold? Yes. Okay, we do have enough gold. So warehouse buildings are interesting buildings. They are what I called ageless buildings. That means that they last through all of the ages. They go all the way to the modern age. You cannot build over them, so you can't do any overbuilding. So once you build one, that's it. It's there forever. And there is only a couple of them. All of your towns have access to every warehouse building. So you've got access to build your brickyard, granary, saw pit. Those are all warehouse buildings. The altar is not a warehouse building, but you can still build it in your towns. Ancient walls are not a warehouse building, but you can still build them in your town. A warehouse building provides a bonus to the yield on a tile. So as an example, if we were to look here, this would be a really good granary city. And the reason why is because, or rather a granary town. And that is because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles that are going to be buffed up by a granary. So I already know that if I purchase a granary, that's going to be a great investment. And this is something that I can look at before I even start my city and go, hold on a minute, I've got 5 tiles that all get bonuses from the granary. This is wonderful. I should try and focus on buying a granary, and you can just buy a granary here straight away. The moment you plant your city down, just buy the granary because you know it's going to be good. And that warehouse bonus is going to last with you throughout the game. So warehouse bonuses are important to remember. Keep in mind that if you are going to be building like a brickyard or a saw pit, especially in a town, it's only going to be giving you gold until you convert it over to a city. Now, one of the things that we haven't talked about, and I'm just going to speed through these turns right here. We might even lose this city, this town, and I'm okay with it. We need to get to 7 population. There we go. So the reason why we need 7 population is because 7 population is going to give us the ability to specialize. So if we take a look at Thabai right now, I'm going to be able to put one more citizen down. So we're probably going to take this bad boy right here. That's a nice looking tile. We're also going to grow over here because, well, we've got the ability to do it. And so now we've got the option to specialize, which is denoted by that little icon in the bottom right-hand corner that you saw. It was there. It's gone now. So specialization is a new mechanic in Civ 7, and it is unique to the town. Only the town can specialize. There's essentially 3 different categories of your settlements. You've got cities, you've got towns, and then you've got specialized towns. So when a town specializes, it stops growing, and it starts sending all of its food to the connected cities. Now, we know that this city is connected because there's a road that goes between it. So all of the food that it is generating will get sent to the city. And because of that, it can be difficult to know exactly when you should specialize a city, because it's going to stop growing. All of the food, all the excess food that it's got is just going to go to that city. Further, when you are not specialized, so right now you can see our town's focus is a growing town, you're actually growing very, very quickly. So when we start sending this food to the town, we're going to be sending effectively less food. So we want to try and maximize our growth initially, and we have to kind of make this decision about, okay, well, do I want to keep growing in this town? How long is it going to take me to grow? Is it going to be worth it? Do I have tiles that are good in this town that are worth growing to? And if so, then I should probably just keep focusing on growth. But if I've picked up all of the tiles around me, all the resources around me, if I don't really have any attractive tiles, like if we look over here, right, there's so many attractive tiles to grow to because they've got all of this science and culture because it's all powered up by the Redwood Forest. Whereas if we look over here, once we've grabbed this tile, our cotton, once we've come down and grabbed this tile here, there's really nothing in here that excites me. And because of that, I think we can probably move this one over to a specialized town a lot sooner. Now, when it comes to specialization, there's lots of different specializations, but the most common one that you'll be using is probably going to be farming town, because it just really takes what towns do, which is farm, and it just makes it better. It gives them a bonus to farming. But overall, each of these are different. They provide different bonuses. If there was one I was going to give you a suggestion to avoid, it would be urban center. I don't really value this. I don't think it's that strong. To create a quarter is to create 2 specific buildings on a single tile. And when you've got a town, you've only got access to warehouse buildings. And as an example here, you can see these warehouse yields aren't particularly strong. And even if I invest in a saw pit, I'm only getting 2 hammers, which turns out to 2 gold. I'm paying 108 for it. So it means it's going to pay itself off in 54 turns. Am I even still going to be playing the game in 54 turns? Probably. And all of that what? All of that just to pay yourself off after 54 turns. And I guess technically you're probably getting that culture and science along the way, but at what cost? There's an opportunity associated with that. So it could have been the farming town, it could have been the mining town, it could have been a trade outpost. Each one's got different uses, but an important one that you'll want to use all the time is your fort town. If you're under attack, like we are right now, the enemy, they're attacking us imminently, this town is going to go down. What do? We can say, hit the emergency button, we're going to purchase walls. Boom. So now we've got a little bit more of a defense. And we're going to change our growing town into a fort town. And now we have got a super defensible little town that is going to stay alive, hopefully for a little bit longer. Now, it's not growing anymore, but hopefully that will be the difference between it staying alive and it going down. But wait, there's more. Because you put it into a fort town, you can change it back to a growing town. But you cannot pick any other specialization until the end of the era. So the end of Antiquity. That's it. It's gone now. It's a fort town forever, or it's a growing town. One of the two. You pick. But the point is, that's once you pick your specialization, it's locked in. So this one, you would want to specialize this one. This one right here, like we need to specialize this bad boy as soon as possible because it's going down. I'm yelling timber. Let's talk about our next point, which are roads. So the way that a road is created is when you have got a town that is 10 tiles or less away from your capital. Or any city for that matter. I don't know whether it's the same for towns. So as an example, if you've got like a town that's over here and it's 10 tiles away from this, I don't know if that will connect it. So I'm not going to make a claim on that one right now. So you might have to go and check that out. Another thing to note is that once you've got a merchant, so that's this little guy right here, you will unlock the merchant at in your culture tree at Code of Laws. So you can see him right there. And once you've unlocked him, that's essentially like your trader from Civ 6, and it basically works the same way. The only difference is you don't pick a city here and then send it. Instead, you actually have to send him physically. Like, he has to go walk all the way to the enemy, and you have to be able to see it, and it has to be green. So you can see right now it says out of range, right? But there's a good chance if we had turned this into a trade outpost, you can't see it right now, but if we did, there's a good chance he would have come along here, and then that extra distance would have been the 5 tiles that he needed to be able to go all the way. So we would just look to try and send him like that. I don't know why it wants to send him through there. It reckons that that's shorter. So we'll let him go do that. But that's essentially what you want to do. Now, when it comes to trade is a really cool... The way that they've changed it in Civ 7 is very cool. I love it. I think it's very smart. So what's going to happen is you're not going to generate gold. You're not going to generate yields. You're not going to generate anything from this other than the resources that are actually in this city. So if we look here, we can see that we know that there is silk. But we can see that silk here on the UI. We can also see incense. We can see ivory. We can see wool. And we can see wine. And if we can somehow make a connection to this city, we will get all of these resources in our resources tab. They will just appear. Like, imagine if you just got all 5 of those tiles and just plonked them down in your capital. That's essentially what's happened by doing that. So trade is very, very important in Civ 7, especially because of the power of resources. So in this situation, you know, if you pick up ivory, that's a bonus to building wonders on specific tiles. The bonus to culture. Now, I will say with this, just because I had this problem initially with Civ 7 and I couldn't understand it, just to explain you. If we take a look at our city, we are currently building, or we're currently generating, let's go with generating, 2 science and 5 culture. When you start a game, I don't know if we can get rid of this. Can we? Okay, there we go. When you start a game, you'll start off with 10 science and 10 culture. But your city is not generating that. It's just given to you. It's not like the palace is generating it. It's like an empire-wide bonus that is not expressed anywhere on the game board and is expressed only in the rules. It's only on the UI that you actually get that bonus. And so it means if you were to take so if we look at incense as a yield, which is plus 10% science in a specific city, so that's a city resource, so you'd put that in a city and it would give you plus 10% science. So if you get this incense tile really early in the game and you go and you put it in your city, and you're like, why is it only putting it up by like 0.2, 0.3? What's that all about? It's because you're only generating 3 science in the city. And it took me a while to kind of put 2 and 2 together that, hold on a minute, this isn't as powerful as I think it is right now. It's powerful in the late game when I'm generating 40 or 50 science in my city, because then it's representative of 5 science. But right now, like this culture, plus 10% culture, it's not that big. Even if I get that and put it in here, I'm only making 5 culture. So you're talking about, what, 0.5 culture? It's not that flash hot. I'm making more culture from this single tile here. So that's another thing to consider. Let's move on to our next component to talk about, which is win conditions in Civ 7. So when it comes to Civ 7, the way that it currently works is you have got 3 ages: Age of Antiquity, Exploration, and Modern. You can only win a game in the Modern Age. You can't win in Exploration. You can't win in Antiquity. I understand that they're going to be looking at changing it in the future. They're going to make it so that you can play like a specific age and it will just stay in that age. Or maybe you want to play like 2 ages and you'll have your starting age and your ending age and you can choose. But at the moment, that's not the case. So if we take a look at this little button right here, Age Progress, that is going to show us all of our win conditions. Now, as I mentioned before, these aren't win conditions, but rather these are just progression towards your legacy path. So we can see that at the top of our screen. And when you complete this legacy path, it's going to award you points. It's going to give you bonuses depending on how you do. And you can see the rankings as you're playing through the game. So at the moment, we've settled 3 cities, and that's going to give us 3 points in Pax Imperatoria, which is have 12 towns or cities in your empire. Conquered settlements count as 2. So at the moment, we've got 1, 2, 3. There you go. We will need 12 for us to do this. But with conquered settlements counting as 2, you could technically do 6 and then have 1, 2, 3 conquered settlements, and you would be covered for this one. Now, even if you don't go all the way to the Golden Age, that's okay. You're still going to get bonuses for each of these. The whole idea is understanding what you want to do, what your civilization is good at, and then looking to try and align yourself with those victory conditions. As an example, Catherine is powerful when it comes to science, when it comes to culture. Those are 2 things that she's very good at. And because of that, we would look to try and secure World Wonders. we would look to try and secure Codices. To secure World Wonders, it's the same way that you built them in Civ 6. All you're going to do, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll have access to building World Wonders. Each technology that you've got has there are some techs that unlock World Wonders, there are some that don't. Pottery doesn't. Writing does. Gives you the Great Stele. Irrigation gives you Hanging Gardens. Down here we've got the Pyramids. At Bronzeworking we've got nothing. At the Wheel we've got nothing. But at Currency we've got nothing. Up here we've got the Among Us, Maui. And over on the side of Culture, there's actually quite a bit more, I think. So not only do you have wonders in your main technologies, but you've also got them in your mastery. So Mundo Perdido is here in the mastery for mysticism. It's hiding. And one of the other cool techniques that I'll teach you right now, which is something I was really glad when I saw it, if you click this button, View Hidden, so we're going to scroll down to the bottom, we're going to hit View Hidden, and we're going to scroll down again. This is actually going to tell me which wonders are available right now, and which wonders I could build right now in my city. So it means that every single one of these wonders, if I had researched the required technology for them, I could place them and I could start building them. They haven't been completed somewhere else on the map because there's no way to see that. There's no way to go in here and look at Lafayette and go over to this screen and scroll down and see, oh, okay, he's completed this world wonder. It's not here. There's no way to see how many cities he's got other than hovering over this. I can't see the name of them. I can't see the size of them. Actually, I'll take that back. I think I can. I think it might only be if I'm at war with him. If I'm at war, I can see that information. So, because of that, you're kind of left in the dark about the wonders that are available. Unless you've been paying attention over on the right-hand side, it will notify you if a wonder is completed. But unless you've been, like, sitting there with your checkbook and, like, marking them off, you're not going to know. But one of the ways that you can check is through this. Now, as an example, I want to build the pyramids. And I look here, I can build the Pyramid of the Sun, but that's not the same as the pyramids. And the reason why I can't build it, there could be two. The first one is someone else has built it. Well, the second one is I don't have a tile to build it. If we go take a look over at this town, I don't think it's actually going to be able to tell us, because technically we can't build any wonders because it's a town. But if it was a city, it would say, okay, well, you've got a flat desert tile right here. And if we have a look at pyramids, you would see that it must be placed on desert and adjacent to a navigable river, or it must be adjacent to a navigable river. This is not a navigable river. This is a very long river, but it's not navigable. So it has to be placed on desert and be adjacent to a navigable river. I don't even think we've got any of those tiles. Okay, no, even that's not a navigable river. We can't build the pyramids. if you were looking forward to the pyramids of the sun are going to have to do for you, because that's the only one that we can actually place down, because it must just be placed on flat terrain adjacent to a district. So this here is a district, and that is some flat terrain. So we will definitely take that. So those are your world wonders. When it comes to your codices, so you need to display 10 codices in your empire. There are two components to this. The first component is actually being able to house the codices in the first place. If we take a look at Great Works, you'll see that our palace has got access to 2 codice slots. However, if we take a look at I'm trying to think what the best way to do this is. Maybe if we take a look at the library, you'll see that the library has 2 codex slots as well. And then if we go down a little bit further, you'll see that the academy has 3 codex slots. So now you've got 3 plus 2 plus the 2 in the palace. That's a total of 7. And maybe you're doing a 1 city challenge. What does that mean? That means that you can go for Nalanda, which gives you plus 2 codex slots, and you're almost there. Unfortunately, you are going to need to get another city or another town, and keep in mind that your towns cannot build libraries. You cannot purchase libraries. There is no way to store a codice in a town or a codex in a town, but in a city, if you convert it to a city, you will be able to build that. You'll be able to build that library in that town, or rather you'll be able to build that library in that city, and then you could store a codice there. When it comes to collecting codices, there's a number of different ways that you can get them, but the most common way that you're going to get them throughout the game is going to be by completing masteries. So we complete one here, we get a mastery. We complete another one here, we get a mastery. We complete one up here, we get 2. We complete another one here, there's another one. There's another one over here. I think there's probably, no, there's none there, but there's one over here. There's one here. You get the picture. There's plenty of codices. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'll be offered more of them throughout the game. So as an example here, we've got science or culture. If we choose science here, later down the path, we will get an option for a codice. So that is one of the things that we'll be looking out for. And then finally, our last legacy path is your economic legacy path. And that is going to be dependent on how many resources you've got. So there are two ways that you can do this. The first way is if you settle a lot of cities or a lot of settlements, you're going to get a lot of resources. Now, that is not your resources up the top of your screen. It's not your empire resources. It is your actual resources that you've got slotted. So even if they're over here on the side, it doesn't count. They need to be slotted inside your actual inside your settlements. So if we take a look once again at what the requirements are, assign 20 resources to your settlements. So gold is not assigned into the settlement. This is an empire resource, so this one would not count. However, if we grab our trader and we go over here and we trade, then all of a sudden we can slot in our wool, which is going to be +1. We can slot in our culture, that's +2, and our incense +3. We've just got 3 resources out of this single trade right here. And if we want to trade with him, let's say we've already got one trade, we can't do another one with him. So what do we need to do? We need to improve our trade relations. And if he accepts it, that allows us to send another trader. So he's accepted it. Now we can't do that again. We can't send, so we can send a second trader, but we can't send a third trader until this comes off its cooldown. So the cooldown at the moment, it says 0, but I'm pretty sure it's got a 5-turn cooldown as well. I think it might say 0 just because we've only just done it. Hold on, I'm just going to forcibly end our turn right here. I just want to see this just for you guys as well. Never mind. There's no cooldown. Maybe it's something to do with the speed that we're playing on, but apparently you can just keep sending infinite trade requests. Cool. So today I learned. Okay, so finally, with regard to legacy paths, so once you've done all of these, you'll be awarded points, and at the end of the Antiquity Age, you'll roll over into the Exploration Age, and you'll be able to spend those points on different things. It works interestingly, because if you are able to max out your science, you will be able to spend your points on a Scientific Golden Age, and that unlocks the Great Library Golden Age Legacy option, which you can read it right here. Academies become Golden Age Academies, meaning that they retain their base yields, their adjacency bonus, and their effects in the next age, which is huge because the adjacency bonuses that you can get on academies are insane. Like, I have academies that are like +20 science, and for it to just roll over into the next age and just have +20 science from the get-go is wild. On top of that, there's other different bonuses, which I'm not going to be able to reveal all of them today, but I'll just give you a little hint. If you have 0 progress on a specific task, so right here, as an example, we've technically got 0 progress. We haven't reached our first point. It means that we will have an option for a Dark Age. So here, as an example, and this is quite a common one that I do whenever I'm doing a one-city challenge, Militaristic Dark Age. You gain 3 fully packed cavalry armies with siege, but you lose all of your existing armies and all of your settlements except for your capital. So it basically locks you out from spending any of the other points that you've gained, and you just use that. And it's a really cool concept. There's a lot of other little things that you can get throughout it. So it's a great system. But as I've said, like, my recommendation, at least initially, like, if you want to play through all the way, go for it. But my recommendation is just kind of stick to the Antiquity, get a feel for it, and then keep moving on through. So we've spoken about win conditions and legacy paths. We've spoken about world wonders. Let's talk a little bit about natural wonders. I think that might be the final point on my list. Hold on, let me scroll down. Yeah, it's actually the final point on my list. We've obviously talked about it already, but to do this, we're going to dive out of this game, and we're going to go into a game with Spain. And the reason why is because Isabella has a bias. Every leader has a bias. Well, most leaders have a bias to where they start. So as an example, Amina, she will start in the desert. That's her bias. She doesn't always start there, but she will more likely than not start in the desert. And that's because she gets bonuses in the desert. She has a desert bias. And that's something that you don't see here, the desert bias, but it is in the code behind it. The same thing goes for Isabella. So we're going to take a memento here that gives us extra gold on natural wonders. And we're just going to roll the dice. Let's go with, let's do Egypt, why not? And we're just going to load into the game. And Isabella's got a natural wonder bonus. The odds are right now, when we load into this game, there's going to be a natural wonder for us ready to go. Literally in our base. Let's take a look and see. What do we got? Hello. How you doing? There she is, the Great Barrier Reef. One of the most beautiful sites there is in the world and in Civ 7. It is incredible. And not only do you get to start the game with it, but check this out. When I hit this button, each of these tiles now get that 2 gold from my memento. Plus 2 gold on natural wonders. But just wait, there's more. I'm going to get a scout out, and then we're going to grow. Oh, we're not going to grow quite yet. I think it's next turn. Give me a sec here. We'll go with sailing because we're obviously going to be playing a little bit with the water here. And we should grow this turn, I think. Yeah, there we go. +2. And how about we work some of these tiles? Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see how it doubled? And that's because Isabella has a bonus. Plus 100% tile yields from natural wonders. So from the very beginning of the game, and just remember, like, this is a random game that I just started, okay? The way that Isabella works is she just has a bias towards natural wonders. If you pick as Isabella, it'll just be like, yeah, just have the Great Barrier Reef. Why not? What do I care? And a start like this is really good. Like, I'm tempted to write this seed down. So if you take this seed here, this number, and you put this into the map random seed number that I gave you before, you pick Isabella, and you pick the, are we Egyptians? I think we're Egyptians, right? Yeah, we're Egyptians. And you pick Egyptians, you will spawn exactly in this spot, exactly on this map, and you'll get to play this out. But if there's like one thing that I'm looking at right now, it's like, okay, well, I don't think we've got, I don't think we've got fresh water. We probably should have settled here. So we maybe should have moved a little bit. That's okay. We're in a rush. But like just from the perspective of, okay, what would I do here? I'd be looking at Petra, +1 gold and production on desert terrain in this settlement. So I'd be going, okay, I think we'll take all of the Great Barrier Reef. Maybe we'll even take the fish, and then we'll just build Petra. And we'll have an amazing game. That's essentially it. So natural wonders, they are incredible. If you ever see them, you should try and spot them. Actually, we probably just want to type in Great Barrier Reef. It's there we go. That'll take us to natural wonders. So you can check them here in the Civilopedia. But if I've already done a tier list for them for Isabella. If you haven't already checked that out, just jump in on the channel on the videos. It'll be like I think 2 or 3 back. Yeah, Great Barrier Reef is definitely one of the best. The best one that there is, though, the best one is Redwood Forest. This one, I mean, we just had it in the last game. It's very, very powerful. It's better than this. Though, to be honest, I'm kind of looking at this right now. I'm like, man, how good are these yields? They make me very happy. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Actually, there's one thing that I probably should have talked a little bit about that I didn't talk about earlier, and I'm just going to put it in now, even though this should be at the start of the video. I know that we're 91 minutes through this, so it's just for you folks at the end. Let's talk a little bit about the city production screen, because we never actually did that. So over here on the right-hand side, you can actually track all of your stats. So where your food is coming from with regard to like trade routes, well, not trade routes, but civ specializations or city specializations. So here we can see everything that's inside of our base. So as an example, let's purchase. What are we going to purchase? The granary. Let's not buy it. Let's purchase it. So we can just put it down. We'll put it down in the city center. And oh my gosh, we got cotton here as well. This is crazy. This is an insane start. And now you can see the granary is in there. And on top of that, we can go into food income, and then we can have a look. Okay, so from buildings, we can see that we've got +1 from the granary. And we've also got from improvements, we've got the natural yield of the tile. And you can do this with a lot of things. So you can do it with gold, and you can say, okay, where is my negative gold coming from? It'll break it down for you. It'll also say it on this page as well. So that was it. That was all I really wanted to talk about for that. But other than that, that's been it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've made it all the way to the end, wow. Hopefully you've enjoyed the content. I'd love it if you subscribe. This is a new channel, and we're just kicking off in Civ 7. There's going to be a lot more content that's coming out. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you got any feedback, negative, positive, whatever you want to say, chuck it down in the comments. We are responding to every single comment every single day. And yeah, looking forward to it. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching.